You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
I'm Katrina, and I love anime.
I'm Steven, and I'm aware of anime.
But what if that affection could rub off?
Perhaps that excitement in her eyes got me curious.
I could offer up some solid anime.
I could give them a watch, just to see what all the fuss is about.
And maybe, just maybe,
I could learn to love anime too.
welcome to Inspired by a Weeaboo.
Welcome back to Inspired by a Weeaboo. My name is Katrina, and with me is my husband, Steven.
Hello.
Today we have a special episode for you. Instead of jumping directly into our next season, we decided to do a special little episode and watch an animated movie. And some of you may have heard of it, and some of you may have not. But it is called Akira.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Steven, this is like your favorite anime.
Yeah, I mean, this is... If there was one film that I could point to that would have been an intro point for me into anime, it was this film. And I think the very first time I saw it was in the early 90s. I think this is about the time my parents got satellite. Remember when people used to have satellite and it wasn't like DirecTV or Dish or whatever? I mean, we're talking like these gigantic satellites you'd put in your yard, and, you know, they were just like a big eyesore. I never thought there would be a day that we would have cable or satellite. I was always envious of my friends. And one day my parents said, you know what, we're going to get a satellite dish. And I was like, holy shit, we're going to have satellite. I watched so many weird things. I found so many weird channels, and that's not even what we're talking about. But I just wanted to bring that up because that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, we had the Sci-Fi Channel, and Sci-Fi Channel ran, they would do like anime movies, you know, I guess before they really established what they were kind of about, because I think this was in the early stages, before they were sci-fi as in S-Y-F-Y, that dumb rebranding, when it was actually sci-fi. They would run anime pictures every once in a while. Sometimes I think they had like a block on the weekends or something like that, and this was one of the ones that they were showing, and they were making a big deal out of it. You know, I didn't really pay too much attention to the ones that they were talking about beforehand. I think I'd kind of skim by them, but when they were just like, Akira is coming, you know, to sci-fi, the greatest ever, I mean, really blowing it up, and I was like, well, shit, I gotta see this. I mean, this is supposed to be the greatest thing ever. And I was just really impressed with it. Now, I don't know if we've stated it here before, but I'm, you know, always been a fan of animation. You know, grew up watching cartoons like most of us. And I think it was at that point that I was really starting to appreciate animation as an art form. It wasn't just, oh, hey, look, cartoons, look what they can do. You know, and I'd seen the fancier Disney movies and whatnot, but there was just something about this that was another level.
Yeah.
That I had not seen before. And it just really, really blew me away. And this was, as we've mentioned before, our very first film we watched together. Because I knew just before our conversations, before we actually, because we had been conversing online back and forth before that.
Yeah.
So I knew you liked anime. And that was kind of your thing. So when you came over and we were going to hang out, I thought, well, what better way? Let's see if she knows Akira, because that was probably the one and only anime film I had on my movie shelf at the time. Because, again, I felt passionate about it because I loved it. And I was like, have you ever seen this? And you were like, no. Like, had no idea. And to me, it kind of blew me away because you spoke as a anime fan.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought this was something that was known in the anime circles. Now, granted, this is older. The film was made in 1988. So I'm not looking at it through the lens of, the anime you were watching, like what was classified. Like, way more about anime at that point than I did, and as you can see, I'm learning still.
Mm-hmm.
So what I knew of it at the time, and even at the time that we actually met, I had actually read the manga because I was such a fan, and luckily I had a friend of mine who had the books, and I actually want to touch on that as we kind of discuss the movie, because there's very noticeable differences, and it might answer some questions I know you had about it. But Katsuhiro Otomo was the writer of the manga, and he actually wrote and directed this film.
Really?
And some people did not think that he was suitable because, he'd never directed any animes before, but he kind of made his case, and he said, I can do it. And sure enough, he proved that he could do it. In fact, fun fact for you, see, here's me whipping out some anime knowledge on the wife, trying to learn me some stuff.
Uh-huh. Now, is this stuff that you already knew, or is this stuff you had to look up?
Well, this is something I actually was kind of, sort of, was sure about, but I needed confirmation.
Ah, gotcha.
So I wanted to make sure. But this one detail, I think he also wrote and directed. I know he directed. I'm not sure about the writing part, but he directed Steam Boy, which was a movie that you mentioned not that long ago.
Yes. I literally just mentioned it the other day. It's a movie that I remember buying from Sam Goodies when Sam Goodies was a thing. And it was just, I don't know, it was one of those that was in like their little clearance bin, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a watch, because at that time I was getting the, what were they called? New Type USA. And it was an animated or an anime inspired magazine that had like information, kind of like the video game magazines. It would have information like upcoming seasons or upcoming animes, and it would always come with a DVD that had at least like 4 to 5 episodes of a new anime, but it was like one episode per new anime. Or you might get one that had like a couple episodes. So I had a whole freaking DVD like carrying case full of these freaking discs because I had so many of those magazines.
Yeah.
But I came across Steam Boy. I don't remember a lot of the storyline per se, but I remember I really liked it. It was a really fun ride.
Yeah. Now, it's one that I remember seeing a trailer for, and I'm almost positive that's how they marketed it. It was like from the director of Akira, and I was like, shit, I gotta see this. But I don't think I ever did, and I think it came out at a time where I just kind of, not that I lost interest, I was just, it was at a wrong time in my life that I forgot about it. And then I always kind of hear about it. I'm like, yeah, I need to get back around to that. And I would always just forget about it. And I hate that I've never seen it and I hate that you even found it in a bargain bin because that just feels like a slap in the face.
When I was, old enough to have a job and old enough to start buying my own DVDs, Sam Goodies was kind of on its last freaking legs in my town. So for, I think it was like the first couple years where I really started working, they were having basically like a going out of business sale for those 2 years.
Fair enough.
Like it was always a limbo of, are they going to make it? No, they're going to shut down. No, they're going to make it. Nope, they're going to shut down.
I guess in that context, it's okay, but at least you got it.
I got a lot of really good animes from their bargain bin. Like, I got the entire DVD set of Hellsing for like less than $20, which I don't even think you can get it on Amazon for less than $20 now.
Yeah.
So it was worth it.
I wanted to bring up a few details before we dig too deep into it. One, if you've never seen Akira, or Akira, if you want to be proper about your pronunciation. If you've never seen Akira, the movie is listed, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this list, but there's a list out there called the 1001 movies you have to see before you die. And Akira is on that list.
Really?
It is.
What other movies are on that list?
I don't know. I'd have to go dig it up, but I know that this is on that list. It's one of those you kind of look in the trivias and you can find it,
Okay.
for movies. But this is on that list. So if you've never seen it, now you have a reason. You have to watch this before you die, and all that. And there are two. No, we watched the English dub, and for clarity's sake, there are actually two English dubs. We watched the newer English dub, or watched the movie with the newer English dub that was done, I think, on the 2001 Pioneer release. They got new actors to do, like, Johnny Young Botch. I think this is how you pronounce his name. He was Power Ranger. And who did you say he was on Bleach?
He played Ichigo.
And he plays Kaneda. And funny enough, I think I had to have watched the original dub in English on the Sci-Fi Channel. And at the time, that version of Kaneda was voiced by Cam Clark, who I know from numerous things. He was the original voice of Leonardo on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the 80s. He was the voice of He-Man in the 2000s version. He has this very distinct voice. And I don't remember that, though, and I think actually the disc that we have, because we have the newer release on 4K, I think that's on there, like the original dub. So I have to go and dig that up, because I don't think they remastered it or anything like that. So, but we did watch the newer, better dub. I mean, no offense to that original, but they weren't really taking a lot of time and care into it. Back then, it was just like, just say whatever and just slap it out.
Yeah, they're like, the lips don't move like, the fancy stuff. It's the kind of, want, look and mouth movements. And
I actually kind of want to go back and listen to it just for the sake of knowing. I'm not trying to make fun of the dude, but Cam Clark just has one of these voices. And I just can't hear him, Tetsuo, like his voice. I can't do it. And I've got to see it just to get it out of my head. But I know, like, one thing that we were kind of talking about, and one thing that we will probably talk about throughout this entire episode, is the animation. And I wanted to point out a few details, because I did find this as a very precise trivia bit based on everything that we're talking about. The movie consists, if this is not another reason you want to go back and watch this, no CGI. This is not a CGI movie. I've never heard that there's any CGI involved, because, again, 1988, so it really wasn't a thing. But the movie consists of 2,212 shots and 160,000 single pictures, 2 to 3 times more than usual, using 327 different colors, which is another record in animation, and 50 of which were exclusively created for this film. And the reason this statistic for this movie is so high is it takes place at night, and a setting that is traditionally avoided by animators because of the increased color requirements.
I mean, and that makes sense, because that's one of those things I've said before, is that the detail in Akira, especially with it being hand-drawn, is so, like, even though, like, there's a scene in it with the skyscrapers.
Yeah.
And it's kind of zooming in towards it, and, you see the lights and you kind of see the shadows. You don't see, like, major details, but it's just the fact that every single one of those, like, hundreds of fucking windows have, like, furniture. And they're not detailed, but you can tell, oh, that's a desk. Oh, that's a plant. Oh, that's a lamp.
Yeah.
and like, I don't know, it's just mind blowing, because I was thinking about it even as the movie started, and it's doing like the kind of sweeping over the landscapes and stuff like that, or when it would zoom out and you would see the map. Like, it looks so detailed. When you see that in a lot of animes, it's just kind of like blurred out, or you get kind of that muddied type look to it where you kind of get basic colors, but that's about it. Right. But even when they're zooming out, you can tell, like, the little plots of farmlands and where the roads are and all that kind of stuff. And it's just crazy to think that they went and did that, and it's so freaking detailed.
Well, to even give more credit to the writer and director and creator, he was also the illustrator on the manga, and
Mm-hmm.
if I can ever find it to get it, because it's a manga that I would actually want to own.
Mm-hmm.
The detail in that alone should give you a good reason to understand the level of detail he put into this film, because there were just, you could go through the book at certain points and it was just full spread pages from one page to another, and it was just all full spread page detail, no dialogue, no nothing. You just, here's the page, this is all you need to see. And just the level of detail he'd put into that alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not surprising he was like, no, we've got, the detail has to be there. If you're not we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. Now, he could, I mean, I've not heard any kind of interviews or anything like that with him.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was fear that they were going to temper down what he'd created, then yeah, absolutely, I'd want to take full control too.
Yeah.
You know, because he was like, no, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right. We're going to put the detail in it. We're going to take special care of every little detail.
Mm-hmm.
And because the work on the, like I said, the work on the book alone is just, it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And high respect for the man for putting in that much work.
Yeah.
Because the books are thick. And there's 4 volumes that I remember reading. There might be more, or I'm misremembering, but I mean, they were thick. But again, a lot of that were just like full spread pages. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's astounding.
It really is. And there were parts of it. I know there's a specific part where you had mentioned, you wondered how they did a scene because of how, fluid the movement was and stuff. And I literally thought that same thing towards the end of it. And just the way that it kind of all comes to a climax, especially with, the big monster and everything, and the way that it moves and the way that things happen when it's hit and everything like that. It's just so fluid.
Yeah.
Like, it literally looks like liquids pouring out of him, or like goop, or whatever in the heck you want to call it. And it doesn't look cheesy, and it doesn't look, I don't know how to explain it. It's like mind blowing.
Yeah, it really is.
How they were able to do it.
Well, the one that always gets me, and the way it moves, but also the way the fluidity of it, like you were talking about, is toward the end as well. Because I feel like that's one of the best examples of the attention to the details, the minimalistic details. Like they could have popped out like this hose breaking loose, and it could have just been a simple pop and then flies back. Easy. We've seen it in tons of different animes and stuff like that, and it could just be a simple wave. But there's just something about it, the movement, and you can tell it's not so fluid that it seems computer generated. It has like a rigidity to it, but it's so fluid in how it pops loose and just waves around that it had to be so many frames to pull that off, with that amount of fluidity. So it's just, it's mind boggling. Yeah. But I didn't want to like overshoot a lot of the details. So for anyone who might not have seen it, I figured we can kind of break down a few little details and then just kind of discuss them as we go along. Yeah. Because I made notes. First things first is that it takes place in Neo Tokyo in 2019. Surprisingly, this didn't happen. This is always how it works when you go into the future. We get to the future and none of this shit happens.
I mean, it's probably a very good thing that it didn't happen, Stephen.
Because apparently this was 31 years after World War III, and we haven't hit that milestone yet, but we're getting close. And we are introduced to what I learned is called a Bosozuku gang. Do you know what a Bosozuku gang is?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, apparently they are like biker gangs in Japan, but they have like customized motorcycles. And that is very apparent when it comes to Kaneda's bike.
His bike is freaking amazing.
It's iconic. I mean, that's why they put it
iconic.
on the front of most of the DVD covers you see. It's his bike, and he leads a biker gang called the Capsules, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But you see the big capsule on his jacket again on the DVD cover or whatever you get, and he kind of comes off like, he's the leader. He's arrogant, he's kind of, cool, thinks he's somebody, but not unlikable, just kind of full of himself a little bit.
I don't even feel like I would call him arrogant. I feel like he knows, one, he gives two shits what anybody thinks about him. Two, I feel like he cares about the people around him. And I mean, he, shows that throughout the movie. But I don't really feel like I would call him arrogant, because I don't feel like he goes out of his way to start trouble.
Yeah.
He's just kind of like, I'm going to fix it. Because they get into a fight at the beginning with another biker gang. And him and his friends go out to run these, gang members down and everything. And they do. And it's not like he was going out and it was like, they're on our turf, we're going to kick their asses. Yeah. Stopping them from terrorizing people and shit like that. Because him and his friends don't seem to go around and terrorize people.
Right. And the clowns, they were actually doing that. When we're first introduced to them, they're throwing bombs. They're like smashing windshields. So they kind of seem like the peacekeepers in some weird way for a biker gang. So you kind of can see them as the good guys.
Yeah. And they're still kids. Like they're not little kids, but they're not, adults neither.
They're not the big troublemakers in town.
Yeah.
And we're also kind of introduced to Tetsuo at the beginning, when we're kind of introduced to that group. And once you kind of get to the end of the movie and you kind of look back on it, they're introducing Tetsuo like he's meek, like he's part of the group, but he just seems like he's the little brother to the whole gang, And when you see Kaneda's, like I said, I don't want to, like you said, he's not arrogant, but the attitude he comes off, it's like that big brother just telling the little brother, it's like, whatever. He kind of being pushy and bossy to him, but he's not really being mean, just kind of big brotherish, to your little brothers. Like, you kind of embarrass me. You'll get there one day, but this is my bike. I'm the man. I'm the big dog or whatever. And after you kind of observe it for a little while, that's really what it is. He's being a big brother in a big brother way.
Yeah.
And it can kind of come off like he's just being mean to him, but it's not.
See, like, I didn't even feel like it was all that mean, because, when he comes out and Tetsuo's on his bike and everything, and Kaneda says, I customize it for myself. I'm the only one that can drive it, type thing. And Tetsuo kind of makes the comment, quietly to himself that, he could drive it. Yeah. And I feel like it's one of those things where, like you said, it is like kind of the big brother, kind of like, you're not ready for this, just give it time type thing. But I feel like Tetsuo, them being the same age, is what causes the problem.
Sure. But,
because
being on the, and you probably have seen it, but I don't know from brother to sister if it differs. But being as the little brother to the big brother, I have been in that situation where I don't think my brother ever meant anything by it, but it just seemed like, I'll deal with it. Don't worry about it. But in my head, I'm just like, I can do it. I don't need you to do it for me. And that's how a lot of this relationship does seem to come off, is Kaneda's just trying to, protect him.
Yeah.
And we even see that kind of later on, where that kind of became his role. His bodyguard. And I think Tetsuo at some point just feels like, I don't need you to protect me from everything. And that sets off the chain of reactions, going forward.
Because I feel like with Tetsuo, again, them being children, but I feel like with Tetsuo, he thinks that Kaneda doesn't think he's good enough.
Right.
And therefore, the biker gang doesn't think he's good enough. He's always going to be the weak member who gets the crap beat out of him and has to be rescued by the leader. And I think that's, what drives that big wedge. And no offense to Kanade, but he's just dense as a freaking rock and does not understand the shit that's happening until stuff is literally blowing up in his face.
Yeah. And so kind of going from that point now, as all that's going on with the biker gang and the clowns and they're chasing them down, that's where we're introduced to a guy trying to smuggle a kid out of the city that we find out is Takashi, one of the espers that we'll learn about as the movie goes on. They're trying to get out of a government lab. He's being rescued by a member of a local resistance group who've been trying to get them out. And government agents track them down, like blow the hell out of the guy. Like, that's another thing you gotta, I don't know how our audience feels. I feel like from anime, it could just be up in the air. But so far, a lot of the anime we've watched have not been like super bloody or anything like that.
I mean, there are a lot of them out there.
Yeah. And this is one of those that goes in hard and with the blood and guts and stuff.
This is one of those that when people sit there and say that BS comment, anime is for kids because it's a cartoon. No, it is like literally when they are running down because there's a traffic jam because of a wreck and they are running down through there and the police release the dogs. The man who is running with the child shoots the dogs and blood splatters everywhere. It looks like they freaking exploded. And that's not even the worst one.
No. I mean,
like you said, when they blew him away, it's like, they shot him like 6 or 7 times before. He falls down. He's yelling for the kid to run. There's blood literally coming out of his mouth, all pulling around him. And then they just, the smoke covers. And if the smoke hadn't have covered, you'd have probably seen his insides because they annihilated his ass.
And from that point, Takashi, which is the kid that he was trying to run off with, gets out into the street and runs or kind of comes into
he's standing
contact
he's standing in the middle of the road, and
when Tetsuo comes down on his bike and causes him to wreck, but he just seems to be slightly injured by it. And Takashi tries to run off, but then that's when the government agents come around and surround him. And I think at this point, too, we're given a little bit of levity because the movie kind of seems very serious up to this point. And then it's when they all kind of get surrounded by the government agents, we get kind of quips and jokes from the group. But it's not anything too hokey or it doesn't feel out of place. No, it feels like they're genuine, just like, oh, what? Huh? What? Like they're just trying to goof and whatnot. And I don't know. It felt genuine to the situation.
It feels like it feels like what like 16 or 15-year-olds would do. I'm guessing that's around the age that they all are. So it feels like something they would do like, man, we got nothing to do with this, Like, we just showed up, which is true. They didn't have anything to do with it.
Like, we don't know what's happening. So they, the feds take Tetsuo, and then the colonel, which we're introduced to here, what was his name? Shikishima? Colonel Shikishima and another esper named Masaru. Masaru, that's right. He was
Masaru.
Masaru.
He looks like a little Donald Trump, just not orange.
And he's got like a little Grogu chair or Yoda chair.
Yeah. First of all, these kids do not look like normal children. They look like normal children in the sense of being small, and they are, in fact, children. But because of their powers and because of the stuff I guess you could technically say the experiments or the treatments, quote unquote, that the government's giving them, they look like little old people. And not just little old people, but like little greenish blue zombie-esque looking old people.
Yeah.
But they have these adorable fucking voices that come out of them. And Matsuro, the first time you see him, he almost comes off like he's working for the bad guy. Yeah. Because he's telling Takashi, like, we can't survive out here. Come back with us. You know, this is the only place you can be and all that kind of stuff. And of course, you find out that, you know, the children aren't bad.
Yeah.
There's nothing bad about them. But I guess, it's never technically explained, at least not that I saw, but Takashi seems to be the healthiest out of them because Matsuro literally, like Steven said, flies around in like a little Yoda chair looking thing. And the third one
Kyoko.
that we end up meeting, yes, Kyoko, she's in a bed.
Yeah.
All the time.
Covered in glass.
In a bed and has like a glass covering, and she's always laying down. When she's not laying down, literally somebody's carrying her. So I would assume she can't walk. Yeah. And I would assume with the other one, it's just, you know, he can't do it much. Yeah. Which he is bigger. You know, he's a little chunky boy, but...
Yeah. I mean, he gets knocked around, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, he gets knocked around, and he actually, it shows him carrying her at one point. Of course, he's in his chair, but he does carry her. Yeah.
So, with that, they all get taken away, and then the capsules get taken to police department, which makes for some good comedy when they're trying to get out of there. And at that point, that's when Kaneda notices Kei, who was trying to help with Takashi's escape, and he helps her get out, and for no other reason than just, hey, I think this girl is cute. I'm going to try to hit on her. And she's like, yeah, none of that, but I appreciate it anyway, but no, I'm out. And so, again, that led to some good bits. So that was kind of how they got introduced to her. And then we are introduced to Dr. Inoshi, who... has been studying Tetsuo's a bit, or notices or realizes that Tetsuo does possess psychic abilities that he was unaware of, and from what he can tell, they're very similar to Akira's. And this kind of puts kind of a bug into the colonel, thinking, oh shit, we don't need this to happen again. So just kind of keep me abreast of the situation, but, you know, this is a concern. Yeah. Which, obviously, yeah, because we don't need another nuke to go off and destroy the city.
Which one would imagine that his abilities got unlocked when he came into contact with Takashi.
Yeah. So, and that really seems to be on point. Yeah. And to what degree or how he kind of unlocked it is never really explained, but maybe it was just trauma. Maybe it was a latent ability, and then as soon as the traumatic event happened, it just kind of like clicked something in his brain.
Well, I mean, yeah. He doesn't hit Takashi. Like, there's literally a force field that Takashi puts up, you know, in a split second, and that's what Tetsuo hits. So I assume that it's just him coming in contact with the other psychic ability. Yeah. I feel like that's what awoken him, but I don't know, because it's never really explained in the movie.
Right. And from there, Tetsuo, he wakes up, he decides he's going to get out of the facility. He escapes miraculously with no problem. Yeah. You know, unlike all the others, which, I mean, I guess it's not all that well guarded or whatever, but anyway, he gets out. He runs into a girl that he's, I guess, kind of sweet on, Kaori. I think's her name. And they decide they're going to run away, and he goes and steals Kaneda's bike.
Yeah.
Like a dick. And then he gets ambushed by those same clowns that they attacked the night before.
Yep. And this, again, is where it comes into, this is not a movie for children.
Yeah. Because they try to do stuff to Kaori, and luckily they don't take it too far, but you know, it's trying to get there. And then we see Tetsuo just begin to kind of snap, like he's starting to come off his rocker a little bit, and he starts, you know, beating the shit out of one of these clowns. And it's Kaneda, kind of based, kind of what you were saying, is he does seem like he's more level-headed, and he's like, don't kill him. Like, what are you doing? Chill out. You need to back up. And then we also kind of see that same pushback from Tetsuo, where he's just like, don't boss me around. I don't know, I can take care of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to see that friction, that wedge starting to grow between them because of all this that's happened. And then he starts seeing visions. Like he
Yes.
starts hearing these little chimes and he starts seeing stuff. One of the fucked up visions that happens is like he sees his guts just spill out everywhere. And now this is one of those examples of great detail
Yeah.
that they do, because it's just like everything just spills out, and then he's just like trying to scoop everything back up, and it's weird, but and even the silence of it all, because there's like no sound.
That's one of the
with it.
things I wanted to talk about. That's one of the things I really appreciate about the movie. Especially, there's a scene, and it is further into the movie, but there's a scene that takes place in space.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no sound to it. And I feel like it's perfect, because in so many other animes where you have, you know, people fighting in space or going in space, you have sounds.
Yeah.
Just like you have in the movies. Freaking Star Wars, you have explosions and sounds and pew-pews and everything else in space. But space is supposed to be an empty vacuum and you're not supposed to hear sound. And they really lean into that. And I think it's absolutely beautiful. And there's several points in the movie where you have those instances where there's absolutely no sound and you're just seeing all the visuals, and it's just so breathtaking, but not in like a beautiful way, but just in it makes you pay attention.
Yeah. Well, I was even going to talk about that too, since you're kind of talking about that on an equal note. I noticed how music is used sparingly as well, because it's, you know, some movies, and I won't say, I'm not sure how anime does with music and whatnot in a lot of movies, but in a lot of just movies in general, there's always background score or something like that. Even just with some basic stuff just happening, you'd hear some minor little something going on. Most of the time, there's no music unless it's an action beat or it needs to emphasize whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And so it's used very sparingly, and I feel like it heightens everything when it does happen, because it's, like you said, you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Because once that hits, you're like, oh, what happened? Because now we're like, no, this is when it's starting to pick up. I
would say the prettiest part that would be music in it would be when they are, when the doctor is watching the waves.
Yeah.
And it's like these little delicate chiming noises. And then when he overlays it with one of the children's, because it's Tetsuo's, and then he overlays it with, I think, Takashi's. And it just makes this, it's like a lullaby almost. Yeah. It's like this really pretty, delicate music, but it's literally like the sound of utter freaking annihilation and destruction.
Right.
Like, but it's so pretty, and it's just like like a music box.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of it. It's what makes it so awesome.
Because, like, you know, you said you didn't know with most anime when it comes to music. I know Fooly Cooly, they had several songs. You know, they have like a whole soundtrack you can get. Naruto and a lot of the other ones, they'll have songs that kind of play like for a battle or something like that. But the main songs you get with anime are going to be those opening and the ending songs. Those are the songs that everybody fucking loves. But with Akira, you don't have that. You don't really get an opening song, and the ending's just kind of like, yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's all for the art. It works.
Yeah.
So from where we are right now, after he has his visions, those visions kind of trigger like a signal to the government agency that was kind of tracking him. So they're like, hey, we see a blue dot. Let's go get him. And then they kind of reclaim Tetsuo. Then later on in the day, I think Kaneda and his friends are hanging out near a mall or whatever. And they didn't have their bikes. Wasn't that what it was? Like, I couldn't remember why they didn't have their bikes. Did the cops keep them? I
don't know if the cops kept them or if it was that they had to put them up just because, you know, the cops would be on the lookout for them. Sure. But for whatever reason, because we know Akira's bike, good Lord. We know Kaneda's bike doesn't get taken
Yeah.
because you see it later and, he kind of has it stashed away, which isn't really stashed away whatsoever.
No.
But that is one of the things that always trips me up about this movie. All these animes and stuff like that, like Naruto, Inuyasha, Yu Yu Hakusho, they are named after the main fucking character. Akira is not.
Right?
You go into it thinking the boy that you see on the freaking front of that movie that's walking towards his bike in his red leather jacket is Akira. No, the fuck he ain't.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. But it's all about, Akira is kind of the focal point of the story in a manner of speaking, just not in a character sense. But in the manga, that's a whole different story. So we'll get to that in a minute. Back at the mall, Kaneda and his friends are bikeless and apparently about to be girlfriendless because the women seem to be uninterested.
First of all, they sure as hell were not their girlfriends.
Well, the girls didn't seem interested because they didn't have their bikes. They're just not cool anymore or whatever. At least that's what they said. And then suddenly we see an attack within the mall or the food. No, they called it a food. What was it? A food alley, food street, something like that. I saw a sign.
Kind of like a food court type thing.
Yeah. So gunfire, shooting, blah, blah, blah. And then we see Kay running out of there. Kaneda sees her, and then he goes and decides he's going to follow her since she's being pursued. And they wind up in, what was it, in a sewer?
Yeah, he winds up in a lot of dirty ass looking water.
Well, she gets cornered by one of these guys down in the sewer. Kaneda kind of jumps on him and saves her, but then the guy gets to drop on him, and then Kay actually has to kill the soldier, and you kind of notice that she was a little traumatized by that. Like, I guess she hadn't quite had to pull the trigger on anybody.
I don't think she was expecting, like, she fired the gun, but I think it was one of those initial, kind of scared reaction type fires. And she doesn't just kill him. Let's be honest. She literally blows off half of his fucking face.
Yeah, that's true. Again, another gory spot.
Which they don't show it.
No.
Like, you see it come off. You see the skin ripping and the blood going, but you never see what it looks like afterwards.
Right.
Like, he's slumped forward and you just see blood pouring out. You never see, like, the bone or the muscle or anything like that.
Sure.
So I can appreciate the fact that they don't go... Like, I feel like some people would think it's overboard on the blood because there's a lot of blood.
Sure.
Most of these people who you see bleeding, you're wondering how the hell they had that much blood in their body. But I've seen gorier animes.
Right.
And honestly, I feel like the goriest part would probably be the scene where you see, the whole, like, the acid trip where his organs fall out everywhere.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I feel like that would be the goriest scene in the entire movie. Honestly, the rest of it's just really blood.
But I think that scene can almost be, or at least this is how I kind of looked at it, because as grotesque as it is, it's also like that, so grotesque you can't help but look at it and just stare, and so it's fascinating and grotesque all at the same time. So it's that weird spot of like, I'm grossed out, but I can't stop looking because it's so awesome, but it's weird.
And I also feel like it's because of the way that they did it. Because it's not like, you see in like a horror movie or something, somebody gets sliced open, it just pours out steaming. It's like his stomach just kind of like busted open and everything came pouring out.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
We cut to a scene where the colonel is meeting with Kyoko, and we finally are introduced to her and her situation. Like I said, she's bedridden. She's being looked over by the doctor. And when he goes to talk to her, she kind of warns the colonel that, he's like Akira level, power, and something needs to be done or bad things are going to happen. So at that point, he's like, okay, we're going to have to go kill this kid because, this is bad. And so that's kind of his plan at that point, but he gets railroaded by the government. They never really gave him a name. So I'm assuming they're like a council in... I don't really know how Japanese government works. I've seen it in movies numerous times, and I know there's a lot of debating and yada, 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 yada. But I don't really know what you'd call this group of people other than a council of people.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's all they really referred to them as was, kind of the council or whatever. But I do want to touch on something before we move forward with like the council and stuff. When the general goes and meets her, like through a lot of the movie, or at least until you kind of see his interaction with her, he kind of just seems like he's one of those figureheads that are just all, like in our term would bleed red, white, and blue.
Right.
Like he's, he is an army general. He is a hard ass. He doesn't give a shit about nobody. It's protecting, the people just for the sake of, the government type shit to stay in power. But that doesn't seem to be how he is.
No.
Like he genuinely cares for these children. And I feel like that's shown especially with her, because when he walks in, like he's this big man. He's got the freaking, jarhead haircut and shit like that. And he walks up to this little girl and just gets on his knees and then holds her hand.
Right.
Like he's like a father sitting at his daughter's bedside. And even when you see him interact with the boys later in the movie, it's always, he kind of gets onto him like a father and kind of gives them that disappointed, grunt. But he also, tells them when to run and everything else. Like he cares for these kids, and you wouldn't think, given his character, that that's how he would be.
Right. I mean, and I think that's a misconception of how they kind of paint a lot of the characters when you first meet them, is you assume one thing about them based on how you're introduced to them. But as you start to see who they are as the movie goes on, you realize, well, that's not who I thought they were at all. Because like him, you would think, oh, this is the bad guy of the movie. Yeah. And he's not. Because when you start to see what his whole intention is, he's just trying to save everybody from annihilation. Yeah. He's like, I see the threat, and no one else seems to be paying attention.
He doesn't want to repeat because it's literally something that had already happened. Like, they blamed Akira for the original fall of Tokyo, which is literally a massive freaking crater that killed hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people.
Hence destroyed Tokyo, why there is a Neo-Tokyo.
Exactly. And Neo-Tokyo is literally built kind of on the outskirts. Not even really the outskirts. There's part of it that looks like it's built up onto the crater where the old Tokyo was. And he just doesn't want that to repeat.
Yeah, who would?
Exactly. And he would have been, I mean, there's no way he's in his 30s. He would have to be older than 30s. So if it had only been 30 years...
I mean, he could have easily remembered that.
Exactly.
Lived through it. So, yeah, absolutely not want to go through that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, the colonel gets kind of railroaded by the committee. There was a guy in there, and I feel like he was a bigger figurehead in the manga.
Are you talking about the rat-faced dude that looks like freaking Peter Pettigrew?
Yeah, Nazu. He looks like a little
Or
chipmunk.
Nezu. Nezu.
Oh, is it E? I thought it was A. I thought it was Nazu. Anyway.
Nezu.
Well, whatever. I don't know.
He looks like a rat. He like, as soon as you see him, he's the bad guy.
Oh, yeah. So after that, we find that the... well, like we said, Tetsuo, he kind of got recaptured. He's in the hospital because he'd been mind screwed. And then he gets mind fucked again by the three espers, Masaru, Kyoko, and Takashi, because they're trying to stop him preemptively because Kyoko warned him he's a threat. He's going to be a big, big threat if we don't do something about it now. So they try to stop him. But I feel like all they really do is they unlock his abilities even further.
Yeah, I was going to say, all they did was piss him off, which unlocked his abilities. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, before that is he wasn't quite understanding what was going on. I know he was having visions, But it was like in that moment, and what scared him off, by the way, is he stepped on a glass out of panic.
I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, and then because that's, oh God, I know it's animation, but it's just a thought. Anybody who's ever done it, you know that feeling. And just the fact of an actual glass.
I was going to say, and to clarify, we're not saying he stepped on a piece of glass. He stepped on a drinking glass that was intact, and his stepping on it is what broke it, and then shards went into his foot.
Yeah, and then they saw that, and they were like, blood, because, kids.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, like, like he was bleeding, but it was, like, when he went to pull out a piece of it, and they kind of screamed. And Kyoko was like, I'm scared. And then I'm so bad with names. Takashi called him a weirdo for bleeding.
And I feel like that's one of those weird anime, the dub dialogue that they...
And it could be, but it's just... But I also feel like it's kind of a kid thing. And I guess I kind of took it... Like maybe initially because when Tetsuo is laying in the bed and he wakes up and he drinks a glass of water, he puts the glass down and that's the glass that rolls onto the floor. Mm-hmm. Well, when he's laying in the bed, he rolls over and there's like a teddy bear and he kind of looks at it kind of like a what the fuck kind of look and just tosses it into the floor. And then you see more toys on the floor.
Yeah.
And I was thinking... What if they were trying to, like, be nice to him? And that was initially because what, kind of sets off the chain of events with it is he's laying there and then he starts kind of hearing the sound and then the little teddy bear gets, like, shrinky-dink size and climbs up on the bed and it's followed by a little car and what was the other thing?
Was it a rabbit?
It might have been a rabbit. I think it was a rabbit. Yeah. But these three little, plushies or toys or whatever start crawling up and walk on the pillow. And then he grabs them and they disappear. Mm-hmm. And then, it forms a giant creepy ass teddy bear. And that's where everything goes off the rails.
Right.
And I guess it kind of made me wonder if they weren't trying to like assess him out. And because he... went straight for the grabbing and squishing or the throwing the teddy bear, that it was kind of like, he's not going to listen, so let's try to intimidate him.
Right.
And then the intimidation goes horribly wrong.
Okay. And it goes way wrong because as soon as he kind of gets checked on by people in the hospital, like he has just like a brief moment where he just like... clicks and then everyone is now splattered across the wall, ceiling. That was like a blink of an eye.
Yeah. Because it's like one of those, it's not up close, kind of like one of those, horror movie type shots where it's far away. You got the lights, that are on because it's a hospital. So you got the big LED lights and everything. Or not LED lights. What the heck are they called? Fluorescent lights. There we go. And he's standing there and, they're like, you can't be out of your room. You can't be out of your room, which... He literally smashed the freaking door off, like not even off the wall, smashed through it like the damn Hulk.
Yeah.
And they're telling him, oh my God, you can't be out of your room. How'd you get out?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Even the cops are like, how the hell did this happen?
And it's almost like a wave of the hand and they are obliterated.
Yeah. Just.
And I'm talking like whole circle around every part of where he was standing. You even see an arm dangling and just like the blood and entrails and everything dripping and it just flop. Mm-hmm. And it's such a cool scene because like you said, it's in an instant.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like, the whole wind motion because you do kind of see like a dust kick up type thing. But you see the people standing there and then you see them like it's almost shredding as they just disappear. Mm-hmm. In an instant, and then it's just blood. That was a really cool scene.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of my favorites in the entire movie. Now, from during all this time, where we kind of left Kaneda is he met up with Kei's resistance, and again led to some of the more comedic moments in the film. where he's fumbling over, hey, I'm kind of, she's not really my girlfriend, or maybe she is. Or what? I mean, it doesn't have to be. And he just puts his foot in his mouth pretty much. But
Oh, yeah.
he decides he's going to join their resistance and kind of help them because he overheard them talking that they're trying to rescue Tetsuo and the other espers that were there. So he's like, yeah, I'm in for this. Let's go do it. And so they launch an attempt to go after her. They go through the sewers and whatnot, and they get discovered while they're down there because, he's being kind of a jerk ass. This also kind of, like you said, Kaneda likes to get dirty and just nasty water. He actually gets thrown into the water, the sewer water, just to avoid being detected. Yet that didn't really seem to matter because they were eventually detected anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, they're trying to make their way there. But at this point, we go back to Tetsuo, and he's starting to kind of tap into something. Like he's starting to realize, but he's not quite there yet. You can kind of see it's like he's trying to figure something out. Like he knows something's different. He's starting to feel different, and he's just kind of becoming mad in the process. It seems like, like he's starting to tap into something. So he finds, or I think he's starting to detect the others because obviously they're kind of in that same facility. So he's tracking them down, and he finds his way to Kyoko, and the others kind of join in and try to protect her as they do, and they kind of take their teddy bear forms and the car form briefly, but it's kind of a showdown where I don't want to say like Tetsuo just like beats them easily, but he does kind of dispatch of them pretty quickly. And you got to think about that too, with Tetsuo just now kind of tapping into his power.
Yeah, like whole 24 hours.
Yeah, like for him to just be like, yeah, like that,
yeah,
within a brief moment, you're like, okay, he's starting to overpower the ones who've actually been tapped in for some time. So this is a problem. You can see that he's really becoming a threat at this point.
Yeah,
and they do what they can to, fend him off, and that's when Kyoko actually leads Kaneda and Kei, but she does it through telepathy to Kei.
Yeah, like she kind of like possesses Kei.
Yeah, taps into her.
Yeah.
And that's actually something you were kind of talking about, because from this point forward, Kei kind of becomes a proxy for Kyoko. Like she puppeteers her. I won't say completely from this point, but almost from this point forward, she's just in her head saying, I'm gonna take over and you're gonna be my body from here on out. And they kind of imply that there's more to her, but they never explain it.
Yeah, they keep dropping hints. Well, Kyoko specifically keeps dropping hints that Kei is special. And she never outright says Kei is special, but she makes the comments like she's the one. We need her. Yeah. She's... I can't remember exactly how they say it, but basically, like, she's going to do something. She needs to survive.
Right. And see, and I was trying to remember, honestly, if her story did kind of touch on that in the manga, because there is a lot more, and I'll touch on a lot of it later, but there is more to it that this does not cover. Yeah. And I feel like that it's almost maybe in a sense that they were setting up that it would go a step forward, or maybe he was just hinting at something that he did explore in the other medium that he didn't have time to explore here. I don't know. I can't remember if she was like a key element and that something like that was important. Yeah. I really can't, because I remembered certain details, but it's been so long since I've read it. So it could have been, but I mean, they it's even how they say it at the end. It's almost like a bad reading.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, it literally the last, however many freaking minutes, 15, 10 to 15 minutes of the end, you know, the kids are kind of saying things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mainly Kyoko, and she keeps, you know, referring to Kay.
Yeah.
And it's just like they don't finish the sentence.
And it's how they say it. I don't feel like it was meant to be emphasized how they're saying it. And that's why it just sounds like they're saying it halfway and leaving off something, you know?
Well, like I know for a fact she says one part and she says, because she will. And then that's where it leaves off. And then it goes into one of the boys saying, like, you know, their half sentence.
Yeah.
But it's never completed. It's like to leave you guessing. And it makes me think, did they have another movie in mind? Were they planning on making a second Akira movie? Because that's literally how that dialogue makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, you know, but wait, there's more
Yeah,
type thing.
It's very misleading, and again, I feel like it's because of the line readings. I guarantee you, if you watched it in Japanese, it might not come off that misleading. I honestly feel like it's the line readings. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But it does. It just feels like it's being said incorrectly. Like they saw the line and it's like, oh, so they're just stopping mid-sentence. Like, no, that's not how you're supposed to read it. You know, I feel like there was the wrong emphasis on the wrong words or certain words. I don't know. I'd have to remember the dialogue verbatim because I heard it and I was like, if you said it a different way, I could see where it would make more sense or how it wouldn't seem incomplete.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'd have to go back to it. Anyway, they get to Tetsuo and the Espers and try to, you know, stop him. And Kyoko warns if Tetsuo continues to use his powers, he can't physically hear her through the glass. That is some good glass.
Yeah.
But he can hear her through thought.
Yeah.
She's essentially saying if you're going to continue to use your powers recklessly, you're going to wake up Akira, and then that's not going to be good at all. But then that seems to trigger something in Tetsuo. Who's like, oh, that's the one that's been calling me. I'm going to go find him.
Yeah. Because every time he had one of his, like, acid dreams, he was hearing Akira's name.
Yeah.
Like it was said, Akira. Or he would see flashes of, you know, the Akira nameplate and stuff like that. Like he knew that there was somebody Akira or something Akira. And then once she said it, he was like, okay, so they do exist. It's not just all in my head. You know, it's not just some hallucination. Like this is a person or, you know, as we found out.
Now, I will... Okay, so this is an interesting aspect. Not something I want to criticize in the movie. It's just a thought. Okay, so 31 years ago. Now, I'm trying to put myself in those shoes. Okay, as a 15-year-old boy in 1995, did I know what happened 30 years ago in time? So, in 1965, was I aware of what had happened prior? Probably not in detail, but if there were major events, such as this big crater that happened to exist in the country that I lived in, you feel like that information might be well known.
I was going to say the big crater that literally exists right outside the town that you're living in.
You know, wouldn't you think that would be a detail that you'd be like, hey, Mom, Dad, what is this about? And they'll be like, oh, well, you know, this happened.
But the people did not know about the children.
Okay.
Nobody, you know, as far as normal people seem to know anything about them. So I would say it's your classic case of a, you know, government hiding the truth.
Okay.
Yeah, a government cover up because they could have said, oh, it was, you know, a meteor. Or it was a gas leak.
Well, they did say this happened during World War III.
Yeah. So they could have said it was, a nuclear bomb or whatever.
Good. All right. See, good point. Good explanation. I like that.
Like, there's no telling, because the only people we actually see ever mention Akira are the government or the children.
That is true. Okay. So.
No, sorry. I do take that back. Other people do mention Akira, but they basically view him as a god.
Yeah, they're a cult. We'll get to them. Because I've got a few things to say
But it
about
seems
them
to be the majority of the city.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree. But again, I'm going to talk about them in a minute when we actually get to them. So Tetsuo learns through Kyoko, which, this feels like one of those things you should have just been like, oh, don't say, just stop talking, just stop talking. She tells him where he's at. Construction site, or under the construction site of where they're building the Olympic Stadium, which, funny enough, they weren't too far off, because the Olympics were supposed to take place in Tokyo in 2020. So they were only a year shy. They were almost there.
Really?
Yeah. So that's pretty good. Kaneda arrives and is like, hey, Tetsuo, let's go. We're gonna save the day. And at this point, Tetsuo's like, no, you know what? I'm good. I don't need you.
Yeah, and it's like, it makes me so sad the way he acts too, because his friend comes in there so excited, like he, like we said, like a freaking brother comes in there like, I'm here to bust you out, let's get you out of here, let's save you and everything. And he's just like, I don't need you.
Yeah. But this is where I kind of give a little problem with, or have a little problem with Kaneda, is it's his attitude after he says it. He's like, hey, I'm here to bust you out. And he's like, I don't need you. He could have been like, hey, dude, what's going on? But no, he's like, hey, you dumb son of a bitch, you listen to me. And he starts yelling at him. I'm like, nah, see, that's where you're losing it, man.
Well, at first he does tell him because, Tetsuo's just kind of standing there and Kaneda's like, he's like, come on, what are you, stupid?
Yeah.
Which is something, fucking kids say that to each other all the damn time,
sure.
Especially like siblings. And while they might not be siblings in the traditional sense, it is made apparently clear that they have literally spent the majority of their lives together.
Mm-hmm.
They were, which I don't guess we ever find out what actually happened to Kaneda's parents, but Tetsuo's literally abandoned him.
Yeah.
They dropped him, and he wasn't a baby. He was, I'd say probably at least 5, maybe, around that. He was little, and they literally bring him to like a freaking orphanage, I would imagine, and just leave him like you would be taking a dog to a fucking pound and surrendering him. Literally just hand him over to basically nuns, if you think about it.
No, it was kind of messed up, and you have sympathy for him, and
it seems like they make it seem like it's a regular thing that happens.
Yeah, but because we don't know how culture is in Japan.
I know, but and I mean, and it's an animated movie, and obviously it's exaggerated, so I don't expect it to have truth to it. But I would imagine it's one of those where there's truth beneath it, and they're using this as a foreshadow.
Sure.
And everything else. But I mean, you literally hear the kids talking, like when Tetsuo's walking down the hall with the nun or whatever she is, and they're just like, oh, it's a new kid. And they're like, yeah, his parents abandoned him.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, damn, how many times has this happened? Like, holy shit.
Like, yeah, we're used to this.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, there's another one.
So Tetsuo gets out of there. He's just, busts out, and he's like, I'm going to go find Akira. And at that point, the colonel stupidly makes a comment. It's like, where did he go? And it's like, dude, did you not see the hole in the wall?
Yeah.
Or whatever. But he decides he's going to go after him, and he's just going to mobilize, and that's that, and they're going to take care of it. And at that point, he gets a warrant issued for his arrest by this, I'm assuming the government councils decided that, we're going to just end this right here. And the colonel's like, I ain't having none of that. Kill this bastard. And
no, he didn't say kill him. The colonel just said shoot him.
Okay, well, difference. You're splitting hairs.
He was still alive. if you watch the scene again and they go to walk past him, he's just lying on the ground, like writhing in pain, but he's still alive.
Fair enough. All right, there's the split hair. Fair enough. Okay, so anyway, he says to hell with the government council. He's going to do it his way because, again, he does not want this to happen. He knows the threat, he knows the problem, and they're not taking it seriously. So he's going to do something about it. And meanwhile, and I don't really know why he did this, like what this scene was representing, because this is odd. Not that it was a bad scene. It just seems like if he was going to go after Akira, then why would he do this? But Tetsuo goes back to the bar, the Harukira, Harukira, I think I'm saying that right, bar, and kills the bartender. Doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason to it. And then, I mean, he didn't seem to come off rude. He did ask for pills.
No, yeah.
Capsules.
Which, which it seems to be a drug, would be the capsules. And the bar where the kids were Kaneda and Tetsuo and all the friends and everything hang out seemed to be selling them.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the sense like the bartender lets him hang out there, but he also kind of views him as a nuisance. You know, he makes a comment at the beginning of the movie, this isn't a spot for kids, you know, to just hang out, or biker gangs or punks or whatever he calls them. But while he's talking to Tetsuo, you know, he comes off nice, you know, and he's talking to him and everything. And then Tetsuo says, you know, he wants some capsules. And the guy is like, are you sure? And he's like, you know, he has that cockiness.
Right.
Tetsuo does. Well, then the bartender goes, you know, to turn and walk to, I would assume, to get the capsules. And he makes the comment of, you know, because of everything that's going on, the price has gone up. And I would assume that that's kind of what set him off. Okay, so you're going to charge me more money and all this kind of stuff. You're not taking me seriously. You just think I'm a kid and all that kind of crap.
Right.
So I would assume it just comes back to that insecurity of he feels like everybody views him as this weak, meek child, and he doesn't want to be viewed like that anymore.
Like I said, it's not a bad scene. I guess it was to establish maybe just that they needed something more to where he's tired of other people telling him what to do or making him feel lesser than. So this kind of helped. And then added to the fact that there were two other capsule members come in later on that we've kind of seen. We didn't touch on them, but it's Yamagata and Kai. And Kai is, I mean, if there was one member out of the group that's probably the more comic relief, it's him, because it's just his voice, his attitude is like, you know, like he's just kind of one of those wiry type anime characters. You're just like, oh my God, I can't believe this. So Yamagata is the more strong-willed kind of tough guy. So when he sees Tetsuo and they start to converse, he gets really, really pissed. He sees that the bartender's dead and then just like lays into Tetsuo, not giving a shit what's happened.
Yeah.
He's just like, I'm going to kick the hell out of you, and that's that. And then he gets apparently his comeuppance. But we never actually see what happens to him. We just know that Tetsuo fucks him up.
You kind of see, I think it was like a couch or something that got flipped over on top of him. And, you know, Tetsuo kind of comes down and him and Kai have an exchange. And then the next time you see Kai is when he's telling Kaneda that,
you know, what's happening.
Yeah.
Which,
that their friend's dead because they were friends.
Yeah. And this is where Kaneda is pretty much like, all right, he's got to die. I'm going to go get my revenge. But at the same time, it's weird because you hear him talk about it. He's like, because during this scene, as all this is happening, Kei gets retaken by Kyoko. And actually, they had been taken to prison at that point. And they learned, like, Kyoko had told them about Akira.
Yeah.
You know, where she tapped in, or at least she told Kaneda about it and probably just implanted the memories in Kei's head since she was talking about it. But she helps them escape imprisonment because they got caught while they were at the hospital. And then they run into Kai, get all this information, and then Kyoko pretty much tells him, hey, we're going to go stop Tetsuo. And he says in that moment, he's like, hey, he's my friend. I should be the one to kill him. So it's some weird, like he wants to save him, but he's angry at him. He wants to kill him, but I don't know. He's kind of all over the place.
And I don't even feel like when it comes down to it, I don't feel like Kaneda ever had any actual intention in killing him. I think it was just the, like, kind of saying it as a, yeah, I feel like that's one of those tropes.
Yeah.
Not even out of anger. It's one of those tropes, like the whole, well, he's my family or he's my friend. It's my responsibility to put him down. It's my responsibility to take care of it, because I didn't stop it type thing. And I don't ever feel like he actually attempted to kill him. Because when it comes down to the fight scene and everything else, like there is a point where he's driving past him with the gun, has Tetsuo dead to rights, and even says, hey, Tetsuo, heads up, before he shoots at him. So I feel like it's one of those, like, you think you're big and bad, and you think you can take me, but here I am with no special powers, and I'm going to give you a run for your fucking money.
Yeah. So after that, Tetsuo is pretty much going on a rampage through Neo Tokyo. Mm-hmm. And during this process, we cut back to Ratface. And he's having a heart attack or something. Like he's just in a panic. One of his other council members kills himself. There was another guy that comes in. He gets shot by Ratface. And then he's
the one that was with Kay.
And he goes out into the street and just has a heart attack and then kills over because he's trying to escape because he realizes, everything's going to shit. And it's like, I got to get the hell out of town.
Yeah.
And it just seemed kind of out of place in a way because we really didn't spend a lot of time with him. Now, in the book, I'm almost positive he was a little more fleshed out. Obviously, a lot of these characters were.
Yeah.
But here, it just seemed like he was in the one council scene. And then here.
Well, I think you saw him at one other point, and it was kind of like one of those back alley type meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't take place in a back alley, but you know what I mean.
It just kind of seemed a little underdeveloped for such a moment like that, I guess, or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Especially considering when the other guy whose name is...
Ryu.
Yeah, Ryu. When he comes in, because he's with the resistance.
Yeah.
And he's literally one of the people fighting the council who the rat-faced man is a part of.
Right.
So it's kind of like, oh shit, you've been pulling these strings and creating all this chaos this entire freaking time, trying to get the general out and everything else so your ass can take over. And now that shit's going to hell, he was literally shoving money and what looked to be like savings bonds.
Yeah.
Into a briefcase and was trying to get out on foot while shit was literally exploding around him.
Like we said, Tetsuo was going on a rampage. Now, at this point, we get to see the cult up close and personal, and there was actually a cult leader. I don't know if it was a chick or a dude.
I think it was a man.
With his big bouffant hair and the round sunglasses. Now, I remember this almost very vividly. This cult was very prominent in the manga. Like they were well developed. That character that like they would cut back to him several times and just kind of chanting about Akira and his being reborn and risen. So I kind of felt like their purpose here, it was to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
But I think there was a reason they kind of dispatched them so quickly because of how the story plays out. Because how it doesn't really play out the same way that it does in the manga. It doesn't necessitate their need to be there. Yeah. So I appreciate that they were kind of acknowledged, but they didn't need to be prominent features. Yeah. So I kind of get why they got set aside. But still, it was cool to see him. Tetsuo, yeah, he's just... He stops a bullet from a tank and pretty much showing that he's got his powers under control. He makes his way to the construction site And that's where he finds Akira's resting place. However, Kyoko, via Kei, is there waiting for him and decides to go head on with him. And some... So do you find that kind of weird? That
What?
She's able to manipulate her body in that way? Almost to a point of making her not superhuman, but, you know, she's kind of hopping around doing kind of...
Well, it seems that, which they never really, I feel like Kyoko's powers are kind of, they're explained a little more than either of the other two.
Yeah.
Like, she has visions.
Mm-hmm.
She can communicate telepathically. She can, control Kei. I don't know, because they all can disappear. It looks like they all can fly, because we see Takashi flying towards the end too. So I don't feel like it's weird. I feel like they kind of flushed out as much of a plan as they possibly could to try and take him down. And she was just kind of playing her part with it. But I do want to point out one thing, which I did love, because Tetsuo not only goes, to find Akira, but he makes a little stop at a store that's in ruin and creates a cape, like a superhero cape. He literally looks like a superhero. And he, even when he's walking across the bridge and has all, the cult members and everything following him, like, he seems like he's somebody who should be celebrated, even though you watched him up to this point and you're like, God, y'all are stupid.
Yeah.
But he looks like somebody you're just like, he looks like a superhero. And then the government starts shooting lasers and starts killing the people behind him. And he kind of has, it's almost this, like, where you can really see his humanity still, where he looks and he's just like that. He never says it, but it's like that look of, why are you killing these people? Like they've done nothing. And he turns and then, of course, starts attacking. But then when he does his big attack, it literally kills everybody.
Yeah.
And he shows zero remorse about killing the people who are following him.
And that's one of the odd parts about him, is he kind of flip-flops sometimes about whether or not he seems to care or doesn't.
Yeah.
And it seems to be depending on what mood he's in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the idea, especially with the cult, they view Akira as like God. And just, I mean, it's never said or anything like that, but looking at it, they view Akira as God. They think Tetsuo is Akira reborn. But you could look at it as Tetsuo's the freaking Antichrist, because he's the one that's literally going to bring about the destruction of mankind.
Right. So after Tetsuo gets into it with Kei, he pretty much dispatches her fairly quickly,
Yeah, she gets one of those nice anime KOs where you're knocked from the air and you're going like 1,000 miles an hour, hurtling at the ground and land in a big crater, but somehow crawl your ass back out of it without a scratch.
It's amazing. Tetsuo opens the capsule to find Akira, or what he thinks is going to be Akira, only to find out it's Akira's remains. It's his body. And
not just remains.
Yeah,
it's
frozen
like little pieces.
Capsules, pieces of this and pieces of that. And this is that scene we were talking about earlier where the hoses are just popping off, the steam's flowing. I mean, very, very detailed. Even his cape flapping, it's not like just flippy flappy like you'll see in others. It's just like flowing gracefully.
Like, it looks better than 90s like Batman cape and shit like that. Like where it was kind of the big, just big flappy thing in the wind. Like this, you see those little, creases and the little wrinkles and how it flows with the wind and everything else.
Yeah.
And even the hair movement and stuff, like, you get a lot of that traditional kind of anime hair movement, but there's a lot of it that's still really pretty and just kind of fluid looking too.
Right. So after he finds the remains, or at least the colonel makes sure to point out it's just the remains.
Yeah, that Akira has been dead
The
all
whole
this time.
Yeah. And they just kind of froze his body parts in this capsule.
Yeah.
He just kind of finds it amusing. He's like, ha ha ha, okay, like whatever. And this is when Kaneda shows up and confronts Tetsuo, and they engage into a big fight. Tetsuo just seems to be relishing it. Like, he's gone full on mad at this point. He's like, oh, look at you. You think you can take me on? Well, who's... Like,
he's become cocky.
Yeah, he's seeing it from the different side. He's like, oh, so how does it feel now with me being in charge? Me being the one with power, and you're the weak one. I'm not the weak one anymore, so how does it feel? And it's like he's just relishing this power. Like, he can say this is how he feels. And meanwhile, the colonel decides he's gonna, bring in a secret weapon. And we kind of mentioned this earlier, is the satellite attack from above. You see just this light just kind of come down. And you're just like, what is this? And then, boom! Just like explosion. Like, you don't even see it coming because you're just kind of caught off guard by it. And surprisingly, all it does is blow off his arm. Tetsuo's arm, and they're gonna go unleash another attack, and then that's where he shoots off into space to destroy the satellite, and we have that beautiful scene where it's just silence. Yeah, in space.
Which I think the only reason it took off his arm was because right before that happened, Kaneda shot that arm with the laser. Because Kaneda had the laser gun. That was the scene I was talking about where he was driving by and was like, hey, Tetsuo. Like, literally calls out his name. He could have shot him and probably killed him if he hadn't have called out his name. But he hits that, arm, and it obviously hurts Tetsuo because he goes down and, kind of is like, what the hell and everything. And then when the laser hits him, you just kind of see where like the gunshot wound was or the laser wound was kind of just start peeling off. Like, it's like the skin's just, I can't even say burning because it doesn't look like burning, but it looks like that, kind of flaking type of burning off that you would see in like movies and stuff like that.
Right. And it's funny too, because at that point, it's like that arm, which is his right arm, becomes very prominent from this point forward, because after that, during all this chaos, Kaori learns, we get to see her again. She learns that Tetsuo is at the stadium, or at the construction site of the Olympic Stadium, and goes to find him. Now, if you remember, she's the one that was kind of sweet on him, and he protected her from, being almost raped. We didn't say it, but we're going to say it. So she goes to kind of seek him out and help him. And when she finds him, he's kind of curled up in a corner somewhere, injured, which, okay, did it seem like there was a beat missing somewhere? Because after the laser attack and the satellite, and I know he comes back, but I guess everyone kind of spread out after he took off into space because, like night passed and then the next day kind of came around. Kaneda, Kai, and Kei were kind of off recouping before they came back. I just kind of found that to be a little interesting. It's like we just kind of took a break and then we kind of came back to it.
Well, given how far, space is, it might have just been the amount of time it took him to fly there and fly back.
Yeah, true.
Because he definitely does not seem like he possesses... Like, he possesses speed in the sense of, he is able to move relatively fast, but he doesn't have speed in the sense of, like Dragon Ball Z type speed where you're in 1 second or you're in one spot 1 second and appear behind you. Fair type enough, thing.
Okay. So anyway, Kaori finds him in the stadium and she kind of, picks him up and kind of moves him to this little... Almost looks like a throne he's got it made for himself.
No, it's literally a throne.
And that's where we get to see he's made himself a nice little robot arm. And as he kind of sets it down, it just kind of loses, that's when it starts to get weird.
It's like
it
the
just starts to
Borg. It's like
grow
a
out.
simulating.
And if it kind of, I don't want to say it like makes me uncomfortable, but there's just like this weirdness factor. Like it just kind of, because it just seeps out, and it just starts to grow just like a virus. And you just kind of see it just lurking out and just leaching through everything. And it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of making me like itchy right now just thinking about it. It's
like I
weird.
said, it's like the Borg.
Yeah.
He's assimilating.
So, and it just happens. I mean, obviously it's happening because he's losing control of his powers. Like,
yeah, because he's not
time.
doing it intentionally.
No.
He literally tries hiding it from the girl. Like, and that is one thing. He cares about her. Like, he comes off really dickish sometimes to her, at least in a couple of the scenes.
Yeah.
But even when she gets there, she's the only one that's able to get close to him. She's the only one that's able to be around him and him be calm.
Yeah.
He doesn't automatically want to murder her.
Even though he does.
Well,
and unintentionally.
And that is one thing. He's literally, in that instant, he's begging for his friend to help her. Even though he can't, Kaneda can't do anything to fucking help her either, but he's begging Kaneda to help her and saying, she's in pain and everything else. And I think it's at that point that he understands that he went too far and there's no going back, and he's that scared child.
Because, from this point on, this is like the scene we were kind of describing earlier where he just kind of, his arm just pretty much like blows out, and just like he everything from the inside almost seems like it just bursts out of his arm.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of expands and just turns into this grotesque monstrosity of a blob that's fingers have fingers, and just veins, and just
looks like a creepy skinless baby at one point with one giant eye. And this is the scene that we were talking about earlier where it's so amazing that it's hand drawn, because as literally like we're just going to call it fatty skin, even though I'm sure it's not fat nor skin, but the fatty skin of the creature where it's just kind of like overlapping and it's like pouring out almost. And it's so cool the way that it does it. And the only thing I can think to compare it to would be how Ghibli does some of their stuff, like Spirited Away specifically. The scene with the spirit that's like the stinky spirit that comes in, and they have to give him a bath, and Chihiro goes and pours the water, and you see like the goop like dripping, and it's so fluid and everything. But even with Ghibli, it's not as detailed as it is in Akira. Like, you see the little wrinkles, you see the little dimples, you see like the little hairs, the wires, everything as it's moving and it's changing, and it's constantly changing. It doesn't stay in one shape like at all. Even when it turns into the baby, it's still changing and morphing into something else, and every little part is moving separately. It's so cool.
So as this is happening, as you said, Tetsuo is he's reverted back to the one that we saw earlier in the movie, where he's just like, help me, Kaneda, help me.
Yes.
So he's no longer this cocky, power mad person. He's that kid that we met earlier, and then we're even reminded of that, because then we get to see visions of him and Kaneda as kids. But before that, we actually saw the Colonel. Now, the Colonel had showed up he offered a hand. He tried to offer his help, but this is what kind of set it all off, is Tetsuo was like, oh, you're going to take me back to the lab. You're going to take all this power away from me. Well, fuck you. And then he just kind of snaps. And like I said, during his monstrosity blob thing, he sucks Kaori in there and pretty much crushes her like a little tick. It was just
like you kind of see her, and you kind of think, because both her and Kaneda kind of get sucked in within a matter of moments, you know. Yeah, within a matter of moments.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Kaneda, and it looks like where he is, it's like squishy. It's like gross, fatty yuckiness.
Yeah.
And where she is, it almost looks like that, but it keeps closing, and she's like reaching, and it's like creepy. And, you know, she's like, you realize she's getting smushed, and then it literally pops.
Yeah.
It has that freaking pop. Like if you popped a deer tick, one of those big gray fat deer ticks, that is the pop that it made.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing gushes out. It literally almost looks like there was like a barrier from where it was showing,
Mm-hmm.
and it pops, and you just see red, and that's it. That's the last you see of her. You never see a body. You never see nothing. It's just pop, and she's gone.
Yep.
And it's like he doesn't even realize it, because he continues to say, you know, help her. She's in pain. She's going to die. And at this point, she's already fucking dead.
Yeah.
Like, there's no coming back. She's gone.
So, you're too late, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Colonel, he's, you know, like I said, he was there. He's trying to do what he can, but I mean, there's not really much he can do. But then we kind of noticed that the three espers showed up, and they are kind of, what would you say, like meditating?
It looks like they're praying in front of Akira's remains, but I would probably say it would be meditating in the sense of they're trying to reach Akira.
Yeah.
Because even though they play it, or it's like they play it off that Akira, because they never say Akira's bad.
No.
They never say he's good. It's kind of a limbo, and everybody assumes or sits there and says that Akira is the reason, you know, for what happened to Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it's ever actually like proven, I guess, or
Right.
concretely proven that Akira was the cause of it. But yeah, I guess I viewed it as they're trying to reach him telepathically, trying to get some form of information from Akira. And I feel like when it goes and you see their flashbacks, it kind of explains it a little more, because it seems like Akira was like their big brother.
Yeah.
Akira was their leader. He was, you know, the one they looked up to. He was their friend.
Mm-hmm. And then Akira is essentially revived and kind of creates a singularity, I guess, which he kind of sucks Tetsuo into, but Kaneda gets roped in as well. And then when Takashi notices that, he's like, hey, we gotta go help him. And then Masaru and Kyoko decide, well, yeah, it's fair. You know, we go in and save him, because, you know, he's not part of this.
Yeah,
And,
because they did say, like, if you go in, we can't come out.
Yeah.
And they're like, if all three of us go in, maybe we have enough strength to save this boy, because it's not his fault. He has nothing to do with it.
Right.
And that's when we get the flashbacks of when they were children. And we didn't say anything about it other than, you know, Akira, there being pieces of him. But it's literally stated, first of all, he was a child, a little child. And they experimented on him. The government, or this group, or whoever in the hell it was, experimented on him. And the Colonel literally says they experimented on him and ran tests on him until those were the only pieces left.
Yeah.
And by pieces, all of my weebs who are listening, we are saying pieces as in like pieces of blood vessels, pieces of his cerebral network, like his brain, which looked so tiny in that jar. Like, it makes you sad, or at least it made me sad, because while the other ones don't look like children because they look older, you know, because of the treatments, they were still kids. While they might technically be older, because I would imagine they stopped aging, they would obviously have to be older if they were alive before World War III and the Akira incident. But Akira died before he never got to live a life. Like, they meet him while he's already been at the facility. He's already been being experimented on. And then they watched basically their brother and their friend die. And I mean, it's
heartbreaking.
So it is. It's absolutely heartbreaking because it's not like he was Tetsuo and even with Tetsuo's death, it's still heartbreaking because he's not bad. He was put in a shitty situation. He's a kid. He's a kid in a town where freaking kids seem to be hated on and can't live their lives. The town isn't like it's peaceful. I mean, throughout the entire movie, there's protests going on, and I mean, it's like a war zone, even though there's not a war going on.
Right.
It's how people visualize Chicago, I guess.
Or Detroit.
Yeah, or Detroit.
But
I don't know. It's like, it's one of those things I don't think I really thought about the first time watching it, but watching it again, especially with like finding out what they did to Akira, like, it's so fucked up. And I think that's one reason why I definitely want to read the manga. But I would hope that if they ever made another movie, you know, they would... I want the people who did that to him to get justice. And even though the Colonel says that, you know, the people who did it to him left those pieces and everything so they could learn from it and all that kind of crap, there's no way they could all be dead. Like, somebody had to survive to lock away the fucking pieces of him.
Well, the doctor did die. We saw that, the one who'd been experimenting and
oh yeah, well, he freaking deserved to die 100%. He's one of those that, you know, you thought was going to be a good person and then turned out to be not a good person.
Right. So he kind of got his in the end, and Kaneda does get back, and that's where we get those weird, you know, half messages about Kay, and then they just kind of leave it hanging. So, I mean, the ending could, of course, we didn't mention this. When he does get out, Kaneda does come back. Another explosion happens, and Neo Tokyo pretty much gets, you know, obliterated in the process too, like another crater. So that singularity creates yet another moment, like the Akira level event of 1988. So this is where I want to deviate, because I do remember this, and I don't want to spoil too much about the manga. But for me, from what I can remember, this would have been the halfway point of the manga.
Oh, really?
Right here. Because Akira was still alive, or at least he was actually brought back. And from what I remember, Kaneda and Mei found him.
Oh.
And the scene at the stadium, when that happened, was an explosion happened with Akira and Tetsuo. And then from that moment, it sets like a whole new chain of events where Akira is like, after that explosion happens, is like, fuck, don't mess with him. And Tetsuo is almost like, I don't want to say his subordinate, but kind of, where he's kind of watching over him and taking care of him, but also kind of under his rule, because he's the one to fear. And I remember that very vividly. Like, he was the one sitting on the throne. Akira was, not Tetsuo. So it shifts the narrative. So now he doesn't seem like a victim. He seems like a threat.
Yeah.
So,
but I also feel like it's one of those, which I haven't read the manga, but just from the movie, I feel like with Akira, the whole idea of him being a threat was because of what they made him into. Right. Like, these children, obviously they showed some sort of potential. But then when you especially see like Kyoko and the other two, when they come in, they're normal kids. They look like normal children. And then they do this stuff to them. They literally shave their heads at one point, and you see them in these caps and performing all these different tests and stuff. And they're treated like, I mean, they're basically slaves.
Mm-hmm.
They're locked in this facility. They're not allowed, to experience anything outside of it. They're trapped there. And then when they get out, they're made to feel like crap for getting people, like the people who die around them and everything.
Right.
And they're still, like, they still have those mindsets of the kids. And that's, I mean, you see them playing with toys. The little girl holds a teddy bear and everything. They have an entire toy room. The room where all three of their rooms converge is called the baby room.
Yeah, it looks like a big playground.
Yeah. It's like a big playground. They have the, freaking stories and stuff on the wall. Like, there's a brief scene where I think it was like, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or Sleeping Beauty or something. It was like a Disney princess type scene on the wall, and just big toys and balls and, just all kinds of crap. Like, they're little kids. But yet when you talk to them, honestly, the only one that actually seems like a child would be Takashi. Because the girl, she wears makeup. She got not long nails, but, painted long red nails. Like, she looks like she dolls herself up to make herself kind of look older.
Right.
And then the other one, he wears a whole freaking suit. Like I say, he looks like a little Donald Trump.
So, with the end of this, I do want to touch on one thing before we sign off. And that is the impending live action version of the film. Now, it's something that has been, I have heard this discussion for what feels like 20 years, because I remember talks back in the early 2000s, I think it was, saying Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be in a movie and it's going to be directed by fill in the blank. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's see it. And it's never happened because it goes through these cycles. Now, anime movies being turned into live action aren't common. They have happened, but they're not common. They're not common here. Okay, I feel like they're starting to become common in Japan because we've seen, they've been coming out with a lot of Japanese made live action anime properties. Like, they've done what they did Full Metal Alchemist. They've done Death Note. Did they do Bleach? Or is that another one I'm thinking of?
I think they did Bleach. I know they're live action Bleach, Death Note.
I know there's
Full Metal Alchemist. They announced Naruto, Attack on Titan. There's a lot of them that they've done or are working on doing. It's just how many of them are actually good. Death Note, good. Full Metal Alchemist could have been so much better. Best part was Alphonse. One of the hardest things to portray in live action from an anime, specifically anime, because with cartoons, it's different. Like when you have, the live action Scooby-Doo. You can make them look like the characters. They don't have funky, outrageous hairstyles. Anime do. You have those spiky, crazy looking hairstyles. And even when it comes to like Full Metal Alchemist, Edward doesn't have spiky hairstyle, but he has blonde hair. His father was blonde-headed and blue eyes, and he has blonde hair, blue eyes. Same with Alphonse. But the live action is done with, Japanese actors. So you have a Japanese actor with this blonde wig that's in a braid like Edward's, and it just looks so freaking stupid. It's look like there's so much hairspray in it. You're just like, that's not hair. That's like, one of those fake Halloween things that are like the plastic Elvis hair or some shit. It just looks so cheesy.
Right.
And I think that's the hardest thing to portray. And even when I've seen the stills for Naruto, because just about all of freaking Naruto characters have funky hair. I mean, Naruto's literally looks like a damn spiky yellow porcupine. And it's, they're wigs. And you see cosplayers do it all the time and can do it really good. I just don't understand why movie producers can't do it as good as the cosplayers.
No telling. So, I guess here's what I want to throw out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, first of all, we can talk about the hairdos and hairstyles there. There's nothing funky about any of them. I mean,
other than Tetsuo's, but towards
like
the end.
His looks like a little spiky, but it almost looks like he's losing a little.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, towards...
receding.
Yeah, towards the end, he definitely has, like, that receding. But it's like, it's almost like it's standing up on end.
I mean, it could almost be like, it's messy.
I know, but I still feel like it's a specific hairstyle. Like, you don't need to make it look like it's in the little triangular points.
Well, see,
like it looks, but
I think that's half the problem. Don't overthink something like a hairstyle. If it's not something so iconic that it like has to be that, don't worry about it. Just worry about the characters. Make the characters compelling. The hell with their hair.
I know, but then you'll have people mad because they don't look like the actual
shit what their
characters.
hair looks like, as long as the movie's good. Now, with the live action version that I hear is in development. It doesn't mean it's filming or anything like that. It's currently in development, like they're trying to work out all the plans and the kinks and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I feel like I should be not concerned about it because rumor has it that Taika Waititi is directing the film. And I know his name is controversial here lately.
People can kiss my ass on the controversial part of Taika Waititi.
You know what the problem is, though? The controversy seemed to have only stemmed from Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah,
I never heard a bad word about the man because in that same year, keep this in mind, this year, when Thor: Love and Thunder came out, and everyone was like, he's the worst director ever, he's ruined the franchise. This is also the same year that Our Flag Means Death came out, and people loved this show. And guess who was responsible for that? Taika Waititi.
Yeah.
So
I'm so tired of the hate on him because, especially with Thor: Love and Thunder, I absolutely freaking loved the movie. Absolutely loved it. Was it corny at times? Yes. But freaking Thor is corny. Have nobody ever seen any of the cartoons, even the old live action shit? Like, come on.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it just makes me angry. But the biggest thing people need to realize is Thor: Love and Thunder is narrated by Korg. And we all know Korg isn't a serious character or a character to be taken seriously.
Right.
And it's just, he's like a kid retelling a story and gets shit wrong.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
the proper... people aren't seeing it through that narrative. Therefore, they're not seeing why it could be viewed in this way. Even though, like you said, he's narrating throughout. This is not, you hear a narration at the beginning and then it stops and then he comes back around and it's like, oh yeah, he was narrating this. No, he's dropping narration throughout the entire movie. Yeah. Therefore, he is creating the atmosphere to the narrative. If it was Korg narrating and it was a deadly serious movie, it would be really weird.
Yeah.
You know, it just wouldn't feel right. You're like, this is odd. Something feels off.
Yeah. And I've honestly, thinking back on the other Thor movies, I don't understand where people thought he was a serious character to begin with. Like Thor, not Korg. From the very beginning, Thor was cheesy and did and said stupid stuff all the freaking time.
Go back to the first one. Granted, it took itself a little bit more seriously, but it was a fish out of water story. So you had those comedic moments where he was being silly. He's like, I don't understand how stuff on Earth works.
Yeah, like the bring me more meat and smashes the cup type stuff.
Yeah. That, I mean, nothing about that feels any less corny than the Thor we got by the end. It's just like it's evolved to where he's at now. Yeah. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Akira.
No.
And
we were just talking about Taika, and I'm sick and tired of people shitting on him. He's a very good director. He's a good writer. He makes amazing freaking movies. He makes amazing shows, and y'all better leave my Taika Waititi alone.
And we're only and honestly, it's one movie that people are pointing to.
Yes, I know.
When you can go back through his entire filmography and say, oh yeah, he did that one and that one and that one, and they are good, solid movies. Good, solid projects going even back to television when he directed one of my favorite shows. He didn't direct all the episodes, but one of my favorite shows, favorite comedies I love, Flight of the Conchords. He directed a few episodes of that. That, I mean, it's a good start. You know, he did great work there, and he's just done great work from that point on. So I'm not saying that him being attached will make the film great. But I feel that I'm hoping that his filmmaking abilities will bring something unique to it, that he could stay true to the spirit of. I'm assuming they're adapting the manga. You know, they wouldn't be looking at the anime and saying, this is what we're adapting. Like, if it were me and I was tasked with this, I would go back to the source material. Yeah. And pull from that. Because that way you can kind of make it. You can adapt from the larger scope of it versus because this film was a very streamlined version of the manga. Like I said, there were several volumes, and for some reason I keep thinking 4, but I think there might have been 6. I don't know. It was a lot of books, and they were very thick. But I mean, the writer and director of this film who did the manga, he found a way to tell the story in a different way and streamline it. But a lot of the same plot points occurred. Yeah, it's just like, all right, well, we're gonna go to right here and stop, and then that's what they did. So with this, they can go back to his original source material, the original books, and say, what do we want to adapt? Do we think that we can get from point A to point B, and then if we wanted to go to the other books, what would we need to do to get there to maybe just tell this narrative and stop, but still kind of maybe leave it open, then we can do the others, because I feel like that would be the most appropriate way to do it, and not plan to be like, well, we're going to do 3 movies based on 6 books. Yeah. When you don't know if it's going to actually work from an audience perspective, you know. So I'm hoping he's thinking in that regard. Yeah. And saying, what is the story we need to tell that could get us there? And I'm trusting that it will be interesting to see. But again, with the track record of manga or even anime adapted into live action, I understand the hesitation. Yeah. And I want to be excited about this, even with his name, even with the project, but I also understand the track record. It's kind of like video games and movies. Yeah. We've only recently started to get decent. I wouldn't say that there's one that has just really just blown me away, but yeah, you got to give credit where credit's due. Sonic the Hedgehog kind of surprised everybody. That was a movie that shouldn't have worked, and for some reason it did. Yeah. Sonic was really good. So for whatever reason, hey, Sonic finally got one right, because there's so many bad video games, but I'm hoping this could be one of those starting trends, show you how it can work.
First of all, I would like to see what type, like how they're going to do it. Because you have, like the CGI that was in the live action Death Note, which isn't CGI like what you see in, the big Hollywood movies and stuff like that, where it looks so crisp and clear, you would think it was real. It's fake. And that's one of the biggest problems I had with like the Full Metal Alchemist one, was just the scenes in it using the alchemy just looked like a cheesy video game, or like a crappy video game, like crappy video game cutscene.
Sure.
And it just sucks because you have these scenes that you see in the animes and they're so awesome. Like whether it's the explosions or how the alchemy works and the lightning with it, or how even specifically with the alchemy, how everything comes together to make something. Or how, Edward will make a spear and you can see like pieces of it where it's not completely flat because of the materials that went together to create it. And they tried to translate that into live action, but because of the CGI, it just made it so much worse than it should have been. And it's probably just because of how much they could afford to do it. And that's fine. I understand. It's okay. Like I said, it's good. It could have been better. But there's other ones like the American, Death Note, which we haven't watched, where from what I've seen of the CGI, they seem to do really good CGI. But the storyline is shit from what I heard, or at least the acting is shit.
No.
And I don't know. I guess I just want to see how they're going to do it, specifically with the CGI, because there's going to have to be a lot of CGI, especially towards the end.
I feel like if they could reserve it for the important stuff, like the end sequence, you could really stretch your budget and really try to focus on more realistic elements. Like, I'm sure Kanada's bike, I'm sure they could figure out a way to reconstruct that thing and make it.
Oh, no doubt.
Because we've seen cars and all the stuff that they've come up with,
Yeah.
Batmobiles and whatnot. So I don't think that's an issue.
I'd say it's not much different than, what was it? What would it be? The Dark Knight's Batmobile?
Oh, the Batpod.
Of course, his is he like leaned forward, where Kanada is kind of sitting and has kind of the shield coming up. But I don't feel like the bike would be the hardest part. I don't feel like the city or the fight scenes would be the hardest part. It's specifically when Tetsuo turns into the monster, the blobby monster. That's where it's going to be hard, because you're going to have to get those little details and not make it look like it's been photoshopped in, I guess is where I'm coming from.
I think the CGI could make it work. It's just how it would look visually in that regard, because they have to find a way to make it look, as we said about this, grotesque but fascinating at the same time. Because I was trying to think of, there was a great idea. Well, I think it was Two-Face. When they did that in the Dark Knight, since we're talking about it, it was like that thin line where you take it to a point where you want to show the damage, you want to see how badly scarred he is, but you can't take it to a grotesque point where you cannot stand to look at it.
Yeah,
you have to be like, that's disgusting, but it's also fascinating. I kind of want to look at it,
right?
So you're just kind of in this.
Can't take your eyes away.
Yeah, that's what you want to have with that. If you want to make it realistic enough to where it's grotesque, but you have to rein it in to where it's like, don't take it too far, where it's just like, ew.
Yeah.
Like you have to find that fine line.
You don't want it to be where you have to look away.
Yeah.
And I've watched one specific anime that I've watched where I can actually give you two. Where I watched and I got to that point where I was just like too grossed out to continue. Devilman Crybaby, which that show starts out vastly different than the way that it freaking ends. And it just downhill ride the entire damn time. But there are scenes in it where it's just overly gory. And the other one would be, what is it called? But whatever. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. We've kept our weebs much longer than we ever have.
Yeah, well, this is because it was a movie, Steven, not a 25-minute episode.
I know. And I hope everyone stuck around for it and wanted to hear everything about it. I hope that we've reached out to people who are fans of this film and maybe even inspired others who have never seen it to go seek it out and watch it, because I highly recommend this movie. Okay, this is coming from someone who's not an overtly big anime fan, but this one is just absolutely amazing. And if everything in the anime world was like this, well, then, I wouldn't be just, I'd be all over them, every bit of them. But I know everything is not like this, so it is what it is. But I mean, this is me on the opposite end now. What did you think about this movie?
Well, I've obviously seen it before, and I liked it the first time I saw it.
I know, but I just mean like your overall thoughts about it. I mean, like you...
No, I think it is one of those movies that I am really excited and really happy to have been introduced to. It's not one that I would say I watch all the time, obviously. But it is one of those that I feel like it's a good story. The imagery in it is beautifully done, so detailed, and I think anybody out there who has not seen it should go out and try to find them a copy or see if they can rent it and give it a watch.
There you go. It should be most places you find your anime. Funimation, or I guess it's Crunchyroll now, since it's all one. That'd probably be one of your best bets to find it, but dig around and see if you can find it anywhere else, because I'm sure it's out there. But fans, weebs, whatever you're called, thank you for listening to this bonus episode. Just tell all your fellow anime fans to follow us on their favorite podcasting platform and to join us in 2 weeks for season 3, where we shall be watching
Full Metal Alchemist, baby!
And that'll get us through probably the entire year. So buckle up, because season 3, 2023, Full Metal Alchemist, baby.
I'm so freaking excited. All right, my little weebs. We will see you next time.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.